He laughed, in front of everyone, held up the court document like a party joke. Guess Steve couldn't keep a wife either, he said, grinning like it was stand-up comedy. And they laughed. My co-workers, my juniors, even the receptionist. The one who always said hi when I walked in with coffee. My name is Steve. I'm 44. Head of product at a tech startup I helped build from a basement to a glass office downtown. That day I wasn't just dealing with a divorce. I was being publicly gutted in the one place that used to feel like home. It was Friday. Lunch hour. I hadn't even stood up from my desk yet. Gary was by the espresso bar, holding my divorce, papers like they were part of some office roast. He waved them around and made another jab. Something about, if anyone else's wife is feeling lonely, I know a guy with free weekends now. Laughter. More than I expected. Some pity in the room too, but no one said anything. Not even Maya, who used to call Gary out when he crossed the line. I stared down at my screen, pretending to type. Pretending it didn't burn. You'd think a man falling apart could at least have his dignity in silence, but no. Not here. Not with Gary. He used to be my friend. 12 years ago, we were just two broke guys building an app that barely worked. Now he was my boss. And apparently also the man who thought my pain was something to pass around like a meme. I don't remember much of that lunch break. Just that I couldn't swallow anything. My sandwich sat in its wrapper. I kept seeing Elaine's signature on that last page. She didn't even fight me for the house. She just took it. And now Gary had it. The story, the laughter, the room. I didn't say anything that day. I just sat still, hands in my lap, watching them laugh at my wreckage like it was entertainment. I could hear Gary behind me saying, "Come on, it's just a joke. Lighten up." That's when something shifted inside me. Not rage. Not yet. Just something cold. Like a light going off in a hallway I used to walk down every day. They thought it was over for me. They thought this was funny. But I don't think any of them knew who I really was anymore, especially Gary. 12 years earlier, things were different. We were just two guys in a basement with a couple of monitors, some bad coffee, and a dream to build something lean, useful, and clean. Gary handled the big picture stuff, funding, partnerships, early pitches. I was the one writing code at 3 a.m., testing our beta versions on a secondhand laptop while Gary slept on the couch nearby. Back then, we were friends, or at least I thought we were. He wasn't always like this. Loud, smug, cruel. In those early days, he was awkward and intense, sometimes a little overbearing in meetings, but he had drive. We both did. I respected him. We built the first version of our platform out of sheer obsession. When things started to take off, we brought in a few hires, interns, part-timers, eventually real developers. Our roles shifted. I became head of product. Gary took the CEO title. The dynamic changed, but I didn't resent it. I liked building, not pitching. I met Elaine at a networking dinner. She worked in HR for one of our early partners. She wasn't flashy, but she had this calm confidence, the kind that makes you feel like things are going to be okay. We got to talking, and I remember thinking, she sees me, not just what I do. Me. We started dating. A year later, we were married. No drama. No doubts. It felt easy. I was proud of my life. The company was growing. Elaine and I moved into a small townhome just outside the city. She'd make tea when I got home late. Sometimes she'd sit across from me in the kitchen while I debugged, code just to keep me company. Gary even gave a toast at our wedding, said something about how Steve finally found someone who could make him shut his laptop. But the thing is, Gary always liked to push limits. Harmlessly inappropriate, that's what people called it. He'd make crude jokes at parties, talk over quieter voices in meetings, hit on interns, and laugh it off as a bit. I didn't love it, but he wasn't malicious, not back then, just immature. I thought he'd grow out of it. Then the jokes started hitting closer to home. "Hope she's not getting tired of all those late nights," he'd smirk in the break room. Or, "If she ever wants a real CEO's opinion, send her my way." It was always brushed off with a laugh or a shrug. I didn't think Elaine took him seriously. She'd roll her eyes when I mentioned it, said he was harmless. But after a while, I started noticing things. Elaine stopped texting me during the day. She stopped waiting up for me. Her eyes looked heavier in the mornings. She said work was just stressful, new HR systems, office politics. I believed her. Meanwhile, Gary was getting louder, sharper, more arrogant in meetings. He'd interrupt me in front of clients, take credit for my ideas, call me the quiet genius like I was some mascot. At the time, I thought it was just friction, growing pains of success. But something about him changed. Or maybe I was just finally starting to see him clearly. I remember one company party in particular. Gary had one too many drinks. He walked up to Elaine and whispered something in her ear. She laughed, a little too quickly, and stepped away. I asked her later what he said. She just shrugged. Nothing. You know how he is. I nodded. I did know. And for the first time, I didn't like what that meant. The shift was slow at first, like watching a shadow crawl across the room without noticing until everything felt darker. Elaine started working late more often, said her team was rolling out a new training system and she was buried in documentation. At first, I didn't question it. We were both professionals. We understood demanding workloads, but it became a pattern. Every Tuesday and Thursday, she'd get home after 10. By the third week, she stopped apologizing for it. Our conversations became short, surface level. I'd ask how her day was. She'd say fine without looking up from her phone. I'd ask what she wanted for dinner. She'd say, whatever, and go back to her emails. We weren't fighting, just drifting, quietly, like two people standing on opposite ends of a sinking ship. At the same time, Gary started turning on me. He used to rely on me for every product meeting, every rollout. Suddenly, I was being left out of the loop. Projects were being approved without my input. Developers I trained were reporting directly to Gary. In meetings, he'd interrupt me, undermine my suggestions, or crack a joke to deflect attention. Steve's, just modest. Let's see if the real team has better ideas. Once he told the entire room that I still used a whiteboard, like a caveman, while holding up one of my diagrams. Everyone laughed, even the intern. The worst part? I stayed, quiet. I swallowed it. I convinced myself I was being sensitive, that maybe I needed thicker skin. I didn't want to rock the boat. Then came the message. It was a Thursday. I remember because I was on the couch waiting for Elaine, half asleep with a documentary playing in the background. Her phone buzzed on the kitchen counter. I wasn't snooping, just curious. It was late. I glanced at the screen. A WhatsApp notification. He still suspects nothing. Sender. Gee. My blood ran cold. I sat there for a full minute, frozen, trying to tell myself it wasn't what I thought. G could have been anyone. Maybe a friend, a colleague. Maybe she was planning a surprise party. Something stupid like that. But my gut already knew. And my gut was right. I opened her laptop, the one she always left on the dining table. I knew the password. Same one she used when we first started dating, her college mascot's name and our anniversary. I opened her Dropbox, looked at the activity log, then matched timestamps to my calendar. Every time Gary was out meeting with investors, Elaine had logged in from a hotel IP address. Same pattern, over and over again. I checked her browsing history, plane tickets to Chicago, dinner reservations for 2, same dates Gary was out of town. It was like watching my marriage die one breadcrumb at a time. I didn't confront her that night. I just sat in the dark living room staring at the laptop screen until the sun came up. The hum of the fridge was the only sound in the apartment. My fingers felt numb. She came in around 1 a.m., tired, coat half off, muttering something about traffic. She kissed my cheek without looking me in the eye. I didn't flinch, didn't say a word. I just nodded. Long day? She nodded back, already walking toward the bedroom. And in that moment, something inside me cracked. Not like glass, but like ice. Quiet, slow, irreversible. The man I was, the builder, the loyal husband, the team player, he didn't die that night. He just went silent. But something else woke up. Not rage. Not yet. Just a quiet decision. I wasn't going to lose everything. Not to her. Not to him. The papers came on a Monday. Elaine didn't hand them to me herself. She left them on the kitchen counter, thick, cleanly stapled with a yellow tab marking where I needed to sign. No note. No text. No explanation. We hadn't fought. We hadn't even spoken about separation. But there they were, divorce documents, filed, finalized, ready for signature. I stood there for a long time, just staring at them. Then I made a coffee, sat down at the table and read every word. She'd already moved most of our joint funds into a separate account, legally, just in time. The house was in her name. I had no kids to fight for, no demands from her, just a legal ending of something that used to be everything, no confrontation, no chance to ask why. Later that week, during a company team lunch, Gary raised a toast. I still remember the smell of fried appetizers and stale IPA. To fresh starts, he said with a grin, eyes sweeping across the room before landing on me. And to stronger HR partnerships in the future. People chuckled. I forced a smile, but then he added, "Hope Elaine's doing well. Smart woman." He looked directly at me. The room went still, just for a second. Then nervous laughter filled the space like fog. That's when it hit me. This wasn't just about betrayal. This was humiliation. Gary didn't want to hide it. He wanted me to know. Wanted everyone to know. I didn't speak. Didn't flinch. I just sipped my drink and kept my face still. Inside, though, something shifted again. The crack turned into a fracture. I wasn't sad anymore. Not really. I was empty. A kind of emotional silence I'd never felt before. Not rage, not despair. Just quiet. I walked back to my desk after lunch and opened my bank app. Checked the balances. Elaine had cleaned out everything in our shared savings, down to the last $200. I called the bank hoping there had been a mistake. The woman on the other end sounded kind but firm. "I'm sorry, Mr. Reynolds, but these were authorized withdrawals." I thanked her, hung up, and stared at the floor. There was a coffee mug on my desk, white ceramic, a gift from Elaine years ago. "Code hard, love harder," it said in blocky font, a joke from when we still laughed together. I picked it up and found a chip along the handle I hadn't noticed before. I didn't throw it away. Just placed it gently back in the drawer and closed it. People say betrayal breaks you, but sometimes it chisels you into something sharper. That day I stopped being the man who trusted everyone. I didn't storm into HR, didn't yell, didn't demand answers. I just opened a blank folder on my desktop, titled it Phoenix, and saved the first file, a screenshot of Gary's toast on the office Slack channel where someone had uploaded a video. That was the moment I made a choice, not to get even, but to take back everything they thought they could steal from me. Revenge wasn't my goal at first. Control was. That same week, I scheduled a quiet meeting with a business attorney. Not one of those billboard lawyers with TV ads, a calm, analytical woman named Priya, who specialized in corporate governance. I didn't tell her everything. Not about Elaine, not about Gary, just the facts. I told her I had co-founded the company, that I still held some original shares, that I suspected inappropriate behavior at the executive level. She listened, nodded, and asked smart questions. When she ran the numbers and checked filings, her face changed. "You know you still own 18%, right?" she said. I blinked. "I never sold?" She shook her head. "They converted everyone else's options when the company incorporated. Yours were never cashed out. They're still active." That was the first breath of air I'd had in weeks. 18%. Not enough to run the company, but enough to demand answers. Enough to trigger a board review if I played it right, so I started gathering quietly, methodically. Gary had never been discreet. His emails were sloppy, his Slack messages full of innuendo. He'd made comments in meetings, misused company credit cards, and played favorites so openly it was practically a feature of our workplace culture. I started saving everything: screenshots, receipts, timestamps. I created a document trail even a hostile board couldn't ignore. But I wasn't alone. One afternoon, Maya from HR pulled me aside. She closed the office door, sat down, and said, "I'm sick of him too." She'd seen it all. The complaints that went missing, the interns who left without exit interviews, the contractors who were never paid on time. "I can't do this publicly," she said, "but I'll help." She gave me signed witness statements from 3 employees who had filed internal harassment reports against Gary. All had mysteriously been denied follow-up. Then I hired a forensic accountant, a quiet guy named Joel who worked freelance and didn't ask too many questions. I fed him every company transaction I could legally access. Within 2 weeks, he flagged multiple discrepancies: dinners billed to non-existent client names, transfers to shell accounts, and even a consulting fee paid to ER Talent Management, which it turned out was Elaine's side business. It was all starting to fit together. Meanwhile, I changed small habits. I stopped drinking from Elaine's chipped mug, started bringing my own, a plain steel one I found in a camping kit. Something about the weight of it grounded me. Cold, clean, focused. I came in earlier, left later, said less. I knew Gary noticed. He made more jokes, louder now, like he was trying to provoke a reaction. But I gave him nothing, because I wasn't looking for satisfaction in the moment. I wanted the kind of justice that couldn't be laughed off, the kind that came with silence, boardroom doors closing behind him and his name being wiped off the plaque outside the office. The folder on my desktop, Phoenix, was growing. Every file was dated, backed up, and mirrored in a secure cloud account. This wasn't a vendetta. It was an audit, and I wasn't coming for Gary's job. I was coming for the ground he walked on. It took 3 months. 3 months of collecting, organizing, and waiting. Not for Gary to slip. He was already sloppy. But for the timing to be perfect. The final spark came from Maya. She forwarded me a complaint from a junior developer, a detailed account of Gary's inappropriate comments during a product review call. It was clear, time-stamped, and backed by 2 witnesses. It wasn't just unprofessional, it was fireable. I attached it to the dossier, along with the shell company records, the dinner receipts, the misuse of employee travel budgets, and, of course, the conflict of interest. The payout to Elaine's business during the same quarter I was being phased out of decision-making. Then I submitted the entire package to the board. Not with a dramatic email, just a formal memo. Quiet, professional, unemotional. For a while nothing happened. A week, then 2. But behind the scenes, the silence was moving fast. The board launched a private inquiry. HR was instructed to reopen past complaints. Finance began auditing executive expenses. And just like that, the air in the office changed. Gary got jumpier. Started calling emergency meetings, demanding loyalty from people who'd already chosen. Survival. 3 employees came forward with formal statements, Maya being one of them. The others were a developer and an executive assistant who had witnessed years of misconduct but never felt safe to speak. Until now. 2 weeks later, Gary was called into a closed-door meeting with the board. He emerged pale, angry, and avoided my eyes completely. The next morning, an internal memo went out. Effective immediately, Gary Stein will no longer be serving as CEO. That was it. No farewell speech, no send-off party, just a name scrubbed off the leadership page. Later that day, I got a call from one of the board members. "We'd like you to step in as interim CEO while we restructure," she said. I paused. "Temporarily?" She chuckled. "Let's see how things go." I didn't tell anyone right away. I didn't strut through the halls or make a speech. I just came in the next morning and sat down in the same office Gary once ruled like a kingdom. I brought nothing with me except my laptop and that steel mug, cold, clean, focused. I changed the locks, fired the outside PR firm Gary used to filter company news, reinstated a few old employees who had been pushed out unfairly. Then I made one more move, not out of revenge, but because it made business sense. Gary had mortgaged his house to invest in a new startup, a flashy VR tech project that had been bleeding capital. I quietly contacted the remaining partners, offered a bailout package, and acquired full rights to the IP. The startup? Now folded into our R&D division. The house? Well, the bank moved quickly after Gary missed 2 payments. I made the purchase under a holding company. A realtor handed me the keys in a quiet transaction. No drama, no confrontation. I drove by just once, parked across the street. Looked at the front porch where Gary used to host those obnoxious barbecues. Then I went back to work. The chipped mug, Elaine's old gift, I left it on Gary's desk, right where his nameplate used to sit. Let it gather dust, just like his legacy. I don't think about Gary much anymore, or Elaine, not with anger, not with longing, just not at all. Like old files you don't open. Not because you've deleted them, but because they no longer matter. The company is different now, quietly better. We implemented new onboarding systems, brought back ethics reviews, and promoted people who used to be invisible under Gary's leadership. Maya's running people ops now. She's built policies that actually protect people, not silence them. Sometimes I still sit in that corner office, lights low, watching the city fade behind tinted glass. I don't feel powerful. I feel steady. And after everything I've learned, that's more valuable. I kept Gary's house for a few months. Not out of spite, just practicality. It was an asset. Eventually, I sold it to a family that needed space. For their kids, I didn't want his energy in my life. I didn't need to live in the ruins of someone else's ego. I live smaller now. Simpler. A condo near the park. Close enough to walk to work. Close enough to think. Some mornings I sit on a bench with my steel coffee mug, the one that never cracked. I watch people go by, listen to the city wake up. Maya texted me the other day. The new interns love the orientation program. One of them asked who started it. I told them you just quietly fixed what someone else broke. I smiled at that. Quietly fixing things, maybe that's all I've ever really done. Revenge, I've learned, isn't about getting even. It's not fire and fury. It's not a speech or a breakdown. It's walking away clean. It's building something better, not to prove anything to anyone, but because the ashes don't deserve your name. I didn't destroy Gary. I just made him irrelevant, and I kept everything that mattered.